So, welcome to today's episode of Everyday Alex. And firstly, apology, having been very consistent on uploads for a long time, we slightly went off the rails last week for a few reasons. It was partly because some of my team are either working reduced hours because of COVID, also if people have been unwell, and I've had this packed schedule, and sort of those two things kind of came together. But I think we're on a regular rhythm now. And if you haven't checked it out, there was a new episode of In Therapy that came out yesterday. It's going to be another episode tomorrow. And then it's Bank Holiday Friday, but there should be new episodes of In Therapy Tuesday and Thursday next week, and Everyday Alex Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's the plan. So for today's episode, I wanted to talk about what motivates change. And this was partly inspired by a session that I was filming this afternoon for the Therapeutic Coaching Practitioner Training Program, which, by the way, is an aside, the super early booking discount for the June intake ends on Monday. So do check out therapeuticcoaching.com. I think it's /free-webinar. I think I'll put a link in the comments underneath. But there's it's a great way to find out more, or just therapeuticcoaching.com. Actually, you find out more about that training. But back to the topic: what creates change? There are really, in terms of personal change, there are two primary forces which tend to catalyze and drive change. The first is pain. Suffering so much, being in so much pain where we are, that we're motivated to do whatever we can to get out of pain. The second is pleasure, that we're moving towards something that we want, that motivates us, that we want to make happen or experience. And if you put it in simple terms, it's what we could talk about is the stick or the carrot. Are we motivated by trying not to get beaten by the stick, trying to get away with it? Or are we motivated towards the carrot, like the thing that it is that we're trying to get? One of the things that I think is sort of fascinating and I guess heartbreaking with people which are, suffering from chronic health conditions or trauma or trying to work through issues in their life is often there is an enormous amount of pain that is there. That pain can often be a source of overwhelm, of suffering and misery. And we do what we can to try and avoid and distract away from the pain, try to state change the pain into something else with different strategies that we use. But in a sense, by doing that, we're losing that fuel. We're losing that sort of motivation and that power for things to be different. And this was also the other thing that motivated this episode was if you check out yesterday's episode of In Therapy, which is the beginning of my second session with Lauren, one of the things that comes out is that she had a lot of pain in life previously, but it hadn't really motivated the sort of change that needed to happen. And then the struggle and the pain of going through chronic fatigue suddenly was the change that was needed. And so one of the points I make to her is often we try to numb that pain away. So my sort of invitation to you is if you need more motivation to change, in a strange way, sometimes actually just feeling like where I am right now, does this feel good? And if it doesn't, that's the fuel to do something different. That's the fuel to take new actions, to create new behaviors, to start to put in place the things that can support things being different. So sometimes we have to feel a bit more. We have to be honest with ourselves about where we are. But we don't just want to have the pain on its own. Obviously, if we just feel that and it doesn't turn into action, then we just have more suffering. So we then need to have enough hope and enough direction that it's possible for things to change. It's possible for things to move forwards. That's where watching inspirational stories, where recovery stories, healing journeys can be really important. Sorry, Instagram just paused because my battery was low, but it should last. That's where Having community can be really important. Having others that are on the same journey as us, which can help us see that it's possible for things to change. And this is, in a sense, where the pleasure, where the carrot comes in as well. If we just have the pain to motivate us, it's almost sort of like if you remember being a student at school, and if your only motivation was you didn't want to get a detention or you didn't want to get told off by a teacher. As soon as that risk went away, so did your motivation. And if our motivation is only to get out of pain, the problem then becomes when the pain gets a bit less, when we manage to make a little bit of progress, the motivation goes away. So pain-only motivation is only helpful as a temporary, as sometimes an initial move. That's where we get inspired to lose weight, to go on a new program, to eat better, to go to bed earlier, because we feel terrible and it motivates us. But we need to have that sustain into something more consistent. That's where we have to have something we're moving towards. That's where we have to have the pleasure motivation as well. Same thing's true, by the way, of kids. If you only motivate kids by, I'm going to take this away, or you're going to get this punishment, it's like, it doesn't really work very well. You also need to have the rewards. So when we're trying to motivate ourselves on our healing path, we need to feel some of the pain. Sometimes we need to realize that that's part of the fuel that can get us moving. But we also have to have something we're moving towards. We have to have something that we're looking forward to, something that helps us feel motivated, in a sense, that I want to get there. And that's where, taking my example of someone that perhaps is losing weight, if the motivation is just, I hate the way that I feel or hate the way I look or whatever, that's not great. The motivation is, I want to have the energy to go and, to play this sport, or to go and do these things, or to whatever it may be. That then gives us a motivation that is more consistent, that we're moving towards, that kind of stays with us, not just when we've got away from the pain. So I'm curious, as a reflection for you, what is your motivation for change? Is there too much just trying to get towards something and it feels so far away that you lose motivation? Or is it too much just trying to get out of pain? And once you get out of that pain, you go for perhaps a really bad few days or a bad week, or you get really motivated. Do you then lose that motivation? I think also, I touched on it, but I want to re-emphasize it. Having those inspirational stories, like that's why we put out recovery stories, for example. Having those stories of people that have been on a similar path and have found their way out, found their way through, that is a very powerful motivator, because we see that it's possible. And we have to have, it's not that we have to know that it's possible for things to change, but we have to have hope. We have to have enough hope that inspires us to take some action, that we start to believe because we've got some evidence. And in that belief, we continue with that action. And then we have that tangible evidence that it's possible for us to change. It's possible for things to be different. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. What do you find motivates you to change? What helps you stay disciplined? What helps you keep going on the healing journey? What helps you stay motivated, particularly on those days perhaps where you're struggling the most, perhaps on the days where you feel like you can't do it, you want to give up, it's never going to be changed, and yet you still manage to keep doing the right actions and supporting yourself and moving forwards. What helps you? What supports you in doing that? So I'd love to hear that in the comments. Please do share. One of my goals the next few days is to catch up on responding to comments on YouTube. I really appreciate all of the comments, particularly on the in therapy episodes that get a lot of comments from people. I really appreciate it. And I had a really full-on week last week, was part of the reason why these episodes weren't happening very regularly, but I'm sort of catching up again. So I'm hoping to have some time the next couple of days to go in and respond to all the comments on there. I really do appreciate it. So do share with each other. I'd love to hear what motivates you, what helps you stay motivated on your healing path. And tomorrow we're going to have the second half of Lauren's second session. I think there's some really important pieces in here. We're talking about the episode's called Self-Harm Has Many Forms, and we're talking about some of the harsh and the cruel and abusive ways that we can relate to ourselves and the impact that that can have. And I think there's some really important stuff there. So check out yesterday's episode if you haven't already. And I look forward to sharing tomorrow's episode. And then I'll be back on Monday with the next episode of Everyday Alex Live. Thanks everyone for watching. Look forward to talking with you then.